It's my pleasure to introduce you to our CEO, Mr. Jeff O'Neill, and he's going to share a video with us and then chat with you about Brook Lane and our programs and services.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Doing well. What a great welcome. That's awesome. So, welcome to Brook Lane. As most of you know, or probably all of you know, that Brook Lane, as a faith-based organization, is proud to be a part and a sponsor of HARC. So we're delighted to have you here today, and we're happy to share a little bit about who we are and what we are. I'm sure all of you know about Brook Lane, but I doubt any of you know all of the details about where we came from and how we came to be. And it really is a fascinating journey with our connection with the Mennonite community. We're celebrating our 25th, or I'm sorry, yeah, 25th, our 75th anniversary this year. So we have a brief video that we'd like to show you, and then I'd be happy to share a little bit about who we are and where we came from. But thank you for coming today. So that was a brief clip about who and what we are, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail than that, because how many of you knew that Brook Lane was founded through the Mennonite Church? A lot of you, that's perfect. I should know that, right? Okay. That is fabulous, fantastic. And and our mission is obviously to help individuals, and we want to help individuals through treatment and education. And it's important to note that it's not just treatment of mental health, but it is education, because we do have the 2 schools that are dedicated to treating individuals that have mental health or developmental challenges and disabilities. Our vision is a healthier community strengthened by behavioral health services. We recognize we are the largest nonprofit in the community of mental health provision of services, and based upon that, we know we need to lead the way. And we've partnered with Meritus on a number of opportunities. We've partnered with Horizon Goodwill. We've partnered with St. James School. We are in all of the public schools. So we try to get out there and be part in the community, but the community is our primary objective. These are our core guiding principles. They were taken by the guidance and the principles drawn from the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. Our faith-based status is incredibly important to us, and something that we have determined that no matter what changes may await us in the future, that won't. So we will remain a faith-based organization, and we are committed to that. The guiding principles of integrity, compassion, service, stewardship, excellence, and respect, they're universal principles that our Lord Jesus Christ taught us to use. So we try to reflect that in all elements of the services that we do. And this is our pillars. So basically, the 4 areas that we try to impact are patient engagement and satisfaction. We want our patients to be happy. If our patients are not happy with the services that we provide, we can't expect them to come back. So we need to engage them. We also have to have happy employees. So employee engagement is the second one. So by having employees well engaged, they will be motivated to provide the highest quality of service, which then leads to patient satisfaction. I would love to tell you that money doesn't matter, but I think we all know that it does, right? So fiscal integrity of the organization is something that's critically important to us being able to continue to offer our mission and vision to the community. And community engagement, as everything that I mentioned is related to our community, and our local community is really expanded. Our primary catchment area for the patients that we serve is really Frederick County West in Maryland, as well as the northern counties, the counties to our north in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So our catchment area is really wide and vast, but we recognize that in Maryland, as a Maryland-based hospital, Frederick, Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett counties are our primary catchment areas. And so we have locations that exist in 3 of those 4 with current opportunities that we're working on to expand into Garrett County as well. The main campus of Brook Lane, where you're currently situated now, we actually have 115 acres. It's a sprawling campus. And if you are familiar, I have some aerial photos that I'll be able to share with you in a little bit. But basically it runs from Unger Road to the gotta get my bearings, north. I can't get my bearings where I'm standing. So we're just gonna say Unger Road up that way. Yeah, so, but it also, when you came in on Smithsburg, Leitersburg Pike, our property runs all the way out there. The soccer fields that you see and the hill that goes beyond is also Brook Lane, and it goes all the way to the houses that border on Unger Road, all the way out to our west as well. So there's plenty of room for us to grow and expand, and that kind of feeds into how and why we came to be. So originally, this campus, Brook Lane Farm, it was purchased by the Mennonite community, and it was used during World War II when they were gearing up for World War II to begin. Or prior to that, they started to induct young men into the armed services. And when they did that, there was a number of individuals from the Mennonite community, also the Quakers, or Friends community, and other Anabaptist faith individuals that were very passionate about supporting their country, but their pacifist views prevented them from serving in a capacity that was violence-driven or combat, basically. So they were still drafted, though, just like any other individual would be. And the Civilian Public Service Corps came into being, and the Civilian Public Service Corps, this campus, Brook Lane, was purchased by the Mennonites, and it served over the course of the war over 3,000 individuals. And it was used for forestry services, generally soil conservation. So if you're wondering how that connects to mental health, it has no connection to it. Just want to clear that up. Well, what happened was a lot of the Mennonites that were brought in to this community, to the Brook Lane farm, and doing soil conservation, were really skilled laborers and artisans, and they had lots of talents. They were farmers. They knew how to farm the land. They knew how to take care of livestock. They knew how to build things. They were really talented individuals, and soil conservation was really not challenging to them, and they didn't feel like they were serving their community or their country well. So they went back to the government and they said, isn't there something more that we can do that would better serve our community? And during this time frame, all the way up through and including post-World War II, there was a great blight in the country that was rarely talked about. Organizations or facilities that were referenced as insane asylums, which were really more like prisons or warehouses for individuals that had mental health disorders. They were underserved, and they didn't have the proper amount of resources dedicated to them. There was a lot of filth, a lot of lack of organization. There was abuse of patients that ran rampant. There wasn't enough medical treatment to meet their needs. The food was substandard, and the treatment, by all standards, was substandard as well. So based upon that, these Mennonites, about 1,500 of the 3,000 were retasked and sent out into these insane asylums where they witnessed the great atrocities that were happening during that day. And they came back when the war was over, back to their home communities and their religious leaders, and they had identified that quote at the bottom: if God has exposed us to this need and we don't do anything, how could we expect anybody else to? So they challenged their leadership to make a difference and do something about this great blight. So what they did was, there was already, the Mennonite Church was a worldwide organization with roots all over the place. They had already had a model in effect over in Russia, where it was in a secluded area, basically a farmland, where individuals could be sent to, if they had a challenge, and they could learn skills at a place where their behaviors wouldn't be challenged or become challenging to them and integrating into the community or society. So they learned how to take care of cows and milk cows and herd sheep. They learned how to build things. They learned how to farm the land. And there was great success in that, and a sense of satisfaction that came to the individual as well. It gave them purpose, it gave them dignity. This was the model that it came from. A second organization had been opened up in Vinland, Ontario. And so they used this model, and what they decided to do was to divide the United States into thirds. They were going to put a home on the west coast, one in the middle of the country, and one on the east coast, to open up 3 facilities that would serve these individuals, where they would be taught skills, where their behaviors could be more tolerated, and where they would find peace and dignity, and also be exposed to the Lord. So it was an opportunity across the spectrum to meet an individual's needs. Now, Brook Lane Farm, which had been tasked as one of the CPS farm or workplaces during pre-World War II and during World War II for the Mennonites that were drafted, was now sitting vacant. So this became one of the locations that was targeted to open up one of these homes. And it was Brook Lane Farm. It was organized through the Mennonite community. And the purpose was to, again, allow these individuals around this beautiful community, the surrounding farmlands, teach them skills that would allow them to be productive and meaningful, while also exposing them to the Lord. And Brook Lane Farm became the first to open its doors from the Mennonite hospitals. And Brook Lane Farm Hospital opened its doors January in 1949. And we've been open ever since. And some of the buildings that you see are still the core buildings that existed at that time. There's been many additions and renovations, and a lot of things have happened through the years, but the core is still here, which kind of speaks to how Brook Lane's core has remained unchanged through the years. We do a lot of things differently now. We do a lot of things better than we used to do based on technology and advancement of mental health treatment. But what we do is the same as what the original Mennonite premise was to provide a place for peace and comfort and dignity in supporting individuals with mental health issues. Now, the Mennonites far exceeded what they set out to do. They set out to do 3. They opened multiple facilities, and all of these, except Kernview, is still in existence in some version today. Oaklawn is a sister hospital out in Elkhart, Indiana. Many of you may have heard of Phil Haven. Phil Haven is a large psychiatric hospital up near Philadelphia. It recently affiliated with WellSpan, so it's part of the WellSpan continuum of care as well. Many of these organizations are also either outpatient programs or long-term care for elderly individuals, but they all have the same core values. And Brook Lane, still being affiliated with Mennonite Health, we gather for the Mennonite Health Assembly every year, and when we do, my counterparts from these organizations are there. They're a great resource, so we can often share ideas and talk about innovations and things that we do. Currently, the Mennonite Central Committee, which operated Brook Lane until 1959, after that, Brook Lane became a private nonprofit hospital, but maintained its ties and its roots to the Mennonite community, which again, we continue to have ties to them as well today. Our current 15 board member, governing board, have to come from either a majority of the Mennonite Church or other Anabaptist religions, Brethren in Christ, Church of the Brethren, or Fellowship of Grace Brethren churches. The Mennonite Central Committee decided to move healthcare facilities to another group, and now Mennonite Health Services is the overarching authority for the Mennonite connection to this initiative. And we, as in Brook Lane, we provide benefits to all of our employees through the Mennonite Health community at this time. So we still have that connection with them. We are still a sponsored organization through Mennonite Health Services. They help us with our annual strategic planning. They approve our board members to make sure that they meet the standards that I just mentioned. When it comes time to appoint a new CEO, they are intimately involved in the hiring process and have to approve the candidate coming in. Our current facility, as it currently exists, we are a nonprofit, private, Maryland-based hospital. We have 500 plus employees, and the breakdown, as you can see, we have a lot of licensed individuals as well. So we have the largest cache of psychiatrists and psychiatric nurse practitioners in the area, dedicated to mental health treatment services. And we have 80 plus social workers or counselors that are providing, or psychologists that are providing counseling services to our individuals in a variety. Our 2 schools, 20 plus teachers that are certified or provisionally certified across the age span. So our 2 Laurel Hall schools, one on campus here and one in Frederick. We serve individuals all that have either chronic mental illnesses or on the autism spectrum disorder, or have other types of developmental delays. And our teachers are all specialized or certified in those particular areas. We serve ages kindergarten through 12th grade, and we have a certificate program up through age 21 for individuals that meet that criteria as well. Currently, we have a 58-bed inpatient hospital, which is directly above where you're sitting right now. And that 58 beds is about to expand because there is a great need in the state. We did receive a large grant last year from the General Assembly of $1.8 million. We'll be expanding to 65 beds in approximately 3 to 6 months. Construction is just underway for that. We have outpatient offices, as I mentioned. We have one in Frederick. We have one on campus here. We have one at North Village in Logansville. We also have a small clinic in Cumberland, and as I mentioned, we're looking to expand potentially to Garrett County as well, so that our reach will be the entire panhandle of Maryland. We have 2 Title I school programs. We have partial hospitalization, which is a unique kind of program for both children and adults. What a partial hospitalization program is when an individual is hospitalized, they get a lot of services and then they discharge home. When they discharge home, sometimes it's too traumatic to discharge back to a very limited supported environment. So what they do is they discharge an individual into our partial program, where they receive all the same services they receive in the hospital for about 6 to 8 hours a day, and then they get to go home in the evenings. So it's a gradual transition back to the community once they're hospitalized, or as a means to prevent hospitalization. We also offer substance abuse treatment services as well. We have other specializations. Children with autism, we actually have a PhD psychologist. How many of you guys know Dr. Berg? I figured a lot more would know Dr. Burke. He's out there, you know. But Dr. Burke is our psychologist, and he is ADOS trained, which means he can diagnose and treat and test individuals on the autism spectrum disorder. We do electroconvulsive therapy. How many of you have ever seen the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? A couple of you have done that. It's nothing like that. So, it used to be. It used to be a very inhumane treatment that was part of that punishment of the old insane asylums. Now, it is a medically based humane treatment where an individual goes to sleep, and then a small charge is provided, electric charge, a seizure is induced, and it has a very good efficacy for treating depression, when medications and other types of talk therapies haven't worked. But it does require anesthesia, it does require you to go to sleep, so there is some risk associated with it. So as a result, a new innovative procedure has come out, which Brook Lane now offers as well, called transcranial magnetic stimulation. And it is a less invasive treatment that provides similar stimulation to the brain without the electric charge. They do it through magnets or magnetic stimulation. So it's large magnets that provide the stimulation to the brain. Recently, our crown jewel, we just opened this program up, is a 7-bed residential program serving children in need. What was happening, what is still happening around the state, is that a lot of children come and get admitted to hospitals like Brook Lane or Shepherd Pratt, the other large hospital down in Baltimore. And when they're discharged from the hospital, they're not able to return home, or they're not allowed to return home, or home can't handle them with their challenging behaviors. So they get stuck in hospitals. And at any given time, about 20% of my 58 beds are tied up with kids that really should be out in the community and back in school, but instead they're stuck on an inpatient locked psychiatric unit hospital. So this program allows a discharge disposition to occur while permanent placement is happening. So these kids come out, they go to school, they go down to our Laurel Hall School, and by going to our Laurel Hall School, they actually get the socialization, they can go outside and play, they get all of the educational components that go with it, but they're in a supportive environment so that they're not just thrown back to the community or put in a foster home that may be very temporary or not able to meet their needs. So that program we're very excited. We just started that in February. We have 5 kids in there right now. The state places all the kids. We have a total of 7 beds. We would be full right now, except they can't decide on who they want to send us. So it's not from a lack of us taking it, it's their lack of sending. So we'll be full, I would think, within the next 2 to 4 weeks. This was our ribbon cutting for our residential program. It is actually located, I'm too directionally challenged to point in the right direction. Okay, yeah, right on the other side of this hall. Yeah. But our ribbon cutting was very well attended. It included representatives of the state and our local congressman. and who were very supportive of this as well. This is, I mentioned an aerial shot of the Brook Lane property. This is kind of an overview of it. And just for context, the yellow area, all of you guys would have come in that way. So you either came in from this way, which would be from Smithsburg, or you came in that way from the Hagerstown or Waynesboro area when you came in. And you would have turned on into Brook Lane here. And this is where you would have seen that sign that said Brook Lane Farm that was put up back in 1949. So that's basically that in a nutshell. Now, this little building right here, the interior, that whole thing is the hospital. That's our inpatient hospital, our 58-bed current hospital. But this part of the building was the original building that was built back in 1949 to house the hospital when it first opened up. Since then, as you can see, we have expanded wings off of it, and it has grown significantly. And we'll probably continue to do so for decades to come because of the great mental health needs and challenges that our communities are facing. That was the original core hospital. The building that you see circled now, this portion of it is our school. This is Laurel Hall School, our K through 12. And this portion of the building houses our 2 partial hospitalization or day treatment programs. Those 2 programs serve children or adults. So we've got the whole age span covered there. This is the administration building, so being directionally challenged, that building out that way. That one I can see. This is our North Village outpatient location. It's located in the shopping area at Morgansville as you come through Morgansville. The Morgansville location, that's our largest outpatient program where we do the majority of our outpatient services for Washington County. Our Laurel Hall School in Frederick is located down off of English Muffin Way on Mack Avenue. If anybody comes from that way, I can always remember English Muffin Way. Mack Avenue is the actual name of the street, but you turn on the English Muffin Way. Now that I've told you that, you'll all know how to get there. And then co-located with that is an outpatient clinic that provides services to children and adults, counseling and psychiatry, nurse practitioner services for medication management.
And that's on Chicken McNugget.
You will always remember it though. This is our Cumberland location. So Cumberland was our newest location that we expanded to. We recognized 2 years ago when we did our strategic plan that from the inpatient hospital, the majority of our patients that get admitted to our hospital come from Frederick, Washington, Allegheny, and Garrett counties. But when we were ready to discharge individuals back to the community, Cumberland was a desert. It just didn't have a lot of resources and very little resources for children. They were okay for adults, but not so much so for children. So we opened up this clinic to meet that child population. It is thriving now. We've probably outgrown it already and we need to start looking for larger space, but it is very well received. And we continue to look westward to see if there's things that we can do in Garrett County as well. This is a front view of our hospital. And a true aerial view that really emphasizes our property. Again, as you mentioned, the main road, the soccer fields, and the field over to the left, the pond, all of that is Brook Lane. And Brook Lane really is a small city in and of itself. So what we have the capabilities. This is our wastewater treatment facility, so we process our own waste. We have a water treatment facility with a water tank as well. All of our main buildings are, our patient-centered buildings are generated. So we could go on standalone and for as long as we have supplies of food. So we can stand alone, which makes us unique for a psychiatric hospital. So that's Brook Lane in a nutshell, but I would be happy to entertain any questions that you have or anything that I said that wasn't clear, or just stand up here and start singing a song to entertain you, whatever you want. Yes, sir.
Thanks for that. How long can an adult in inpatient care stay here and receive treatment?
Sure. So just like any type of medical procedure, a psychiatric procedure is medically based and it's based on medical necessity. So, and for a psychiatric condition, there has to be three things being met. An individual either has to be a danger to self or others because of the mental illness. They have to be psychotic or unable to think clearly and therefore unable to care for themselves safely in the community, which makes them a danger to self or others. Or they have to be so acutely impaired that they can't be discharged. As long as that is met, individuals can stay. I can tell you that the average length of stay for adults is usually around 6 to 7 days, but it can vary. Sometimes individuals come in and it was an acute crisis-related problem that resolves pretty quickly. They could be discharged in a day or two. Sometimes it can be longer if it's a more severe illness, and we could have individuals here for 2 or 3 weeks. So it can really vary on the spectrum. Yes, sir?
As far as affording, most people are covered under insurance or Medicaid, or how do they afford it?
So the beauty of being a Maryland-based hospital is that we can serve anybody regardless of ability to pay in the hospital. That's the whole Maryland hospital system is set up that way. Most of our patients that do come in, though, have some type of insurance. They either have Medicaid, Medicare, or private insurance, all of which pay Brook Lane for the services that we have. But if an individual came in and was uninsured, there is a program through the Maryland state for charitable services, and no individual gets turned away for that. So, and that is one strength to the Maryland hospital-based system that we don't have in a lot of other states. Yes.
Well, I have about 37 questions, but actually, do you, I do have two main ones, I guess. What do you offer in the way of family support? Although you mentioned 2 days for a hospital stay for a psychiatric problem. I don't know what you can, what can you accomplish in 2 days?
Sure.
And then family support? And then why are mental health needs expanding? You talked about the need to expand. Why?
Well, great question. That wasn't 37, though.
No. Well, I may come around again.
You reserve the right to turn back for other questions. No, those are great questions. So let me start with the reason why mental health services are expanding, and then I'll work backwards with that. So the reason why they're expanding, if you think back, for one, there's a lot more media attention on it. So it used to be a lot of stigma associated with mental health services and treatment, and people were reluctant to do it or to engage in it. That focus, there's been a lot of initiatives to break down stigmas, a lot of wonderful treatment programs, or training programs. Kurt referenced one that Brook Lane does, the Mental Health First Aid, that teaches individuals how to recognize mental health issues, and then also provides resources, and this is where you can call if you have a problem. The state has also engaged this issue as well, and they've created numbers because of the increase in suicides that were happening, not just around the state, but around the country. Those numbers have been going up pretty steadily for a long time. Now there are mechanisms to get help immediately through Maryland's 988 program, where you can dial in and get immediate assistance and guidance and direction to get. Law enforcement used to have to deal with a lot of these issues, and there's been an attempt to take it away from law enforcement and put mental health individuals with law enforcement. Washington County has a mobile response program that if the police are called to respond to an individual that's having a mental health crisis, they call in the Shepherd Pratt team that goes out for the mobile response, and they assess the situation and can get that person into treatment. So all of those things have helped. COVID certainly didn't help either. COVID was a a large boost to recognition on how important social interaction is for individuals and how socially created creatures we are. And when you're isolated, isolation and loneliness can really spark depression, which leads to those suicidal tendencies and thoughts. So it all ties hand in hand together for that. And then last but not least was hospital emergency rooms. So hospital emergency rooms have recently, in recent years, over at least the last 3 to 5 years, have been overwhelmed with psychiatric issues in the emergency room. And with a lack of resources, a lack of place to send those individuals when they presented, which means they're being housed or boarded in hospital emergency rooms and not receiving the treatment they need. So there's been a lot of initiatives to expand and grow those type of services. Does that answer that one?
Answers question 3 beautifully, thank you.
Okay. Now, you're gonna have to refresh me on what was question 1.
Do you offer family support, and what can you do in 2 days?
Oh, okay, great. So family support, yes, absolutely. If an individual is admitted here at Brook Lane to our hospital, or in any of our outpatient programs, and the individual wants family involvement, then family is certainly engaged and involved with individual and family counseling, connections on what the individual's treatment plan might be. I do have to emphasize, though, that it's always driven by the patient. So any individual, any adult individual patient can refuse to allow us to contact anybody, including the spouse. So if that individual says, I will not allow you to contact my mom, my dad, my sister, and they're over the age of 18, or my spouse, we have to honor that. But short of that, there's a plethora of programs that we would offer and engage them in, and that would go to outpatient as well. So if an individual presents for outpatient counseling and they find themselves seeing one of our counselors and it's a marriage issue or an issue related to substance abuse that might impact the spouse, we would certainly bring in the spouse, and there are a lot of support networks that exist to support that as well. So that's that. And then your third question was, what can I do in a second day, or what can I do in a 2-day stay, right? Sometimes individuals are not always admitted to a hospital because of a chronic mental illness. Sometimes they're admitted for an acute issue. So I'll give you an example. If I was a 15, 16-year-old that was in love, and so I had my first love, and she dumped me, you know, then suddenly I felt like it was the end of the world, and I said I was gonna kill myself, and I got whisked off to a hospital emergency room, and I found myself admitted to a hospital here. As soon as I got admitted, I realized, boy, that was really stupid. My family says that was really stupid, and everybody recognizes that it was basically a lack of coping to deal with that particular situation. Those things can often be mitigated in a day or two. Now, there are other things that result in shorter stays. Unless an individual presents danger to self or others in that criteria that I was mentioning, if an individual is not deemed to be an acute danger to self or others, and they refuse treatment, then we cannot hold that individual against their will. So sometimes individuals could certainly benefit from staying longer, but they refuse that, and once they no longer are able to be held against their will, they have to be discharged. So that would answer that.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Do you offer like intensive workshops periodically, or on any kind of schedule like this that the public could come in?
Absolutely. Kurt, would you like to address mental health first aid and?
Sure. The mental health first aid training that I mentioned earlier is one way that we would try to do that. We also offer professional continuing education, which can be for therapists in the community so that they can get CEUs. Additionally, we have worked with other agencies to be able to offer community programs. Most recently, we worked with the Commission on Aging to offer programs through them. And I think the title there was kind of coping with loneliness. And that was something that we did in the winter time and has been ongoing. But we look to other agencies that we can partner with. And sometimes just trying to hold a program here in an evening, people don't always want to come out for it. So if we can partner with other organizations, that's a great opportunity for us. And we've done programs on depression, stress management, anxiety, things that is even parenting we've offered already to offer programs like that. So there are some options there, and we would love to partner with any of you that want to do something like that, even in your churches. We could certainly have a therapist come out, and we've done that already with a few, and if we can get a couple of churches working together to expand it, that's perfect. And please, I'll leave some cards out that you can contact me. I'd love to help organize something like that.
And my wife was saying, if you offer any kind of obedience program for husbands.
No, but it's an identified need that many of us husbands have, so yeah, thank you for that. Yes, sir.
As the chief chaplain for Washington County Fire Rescue Association, I have had all of my fire chaplains go through the mental health first aid class. It is excellent. Take out your pen, take out your paper, and listen to him when he says he has his next class coming, because don't miss it. It is well worth every one of your time.
And we do send it out on the HARC news flash whenever we get the notices, so.
So honest to goodness.
And do you keep a list like of emails? We live in Pennsylvania, so, if we had access to the list of.
If you put your email address down on the post-it that's there and give it to me, I'll get you on a list to get information,
Thanks.
okay?
Great question. Yes, sir.
If somebody doesn't want to stay and you're not in a situation where you can require them to stay, does somebody outside, somebody else get informed that this person doesn't want to stay and they're going out in the community and this is what we experience?
So, unfortunately, no, if they don't allow it. It all comes down to patient consent. So if an individual should stay, doesn't meet the criteria for us to force them to stay, and they choose to go, and they will not allow us to contact somebody else, we don't have the ability to do that. And it is a great dilemma. So I can't tell you, when I deal with a complaint, many times it's related to that. Nobody called and told me that, because I can't even tell them that their loved one told us we weren't allowed. You know, we have to have a signed consent in order for us to release any confidential information. Great question. Yes.
Well, to follow up on that, what role does competency play in that scenario of not giving permission to contact or not wanting to stay and so forth?
Sure. So competence is more of a legal term. Capacity to make decisions and judgment, that can be, if an individual does not have the capacity to make that, there is a recourse that we as a hospital have, and we will go down that path, which then allows us to override certain restrictions under that way. But if they lack the capacity, they probably wouldn't be allowed to be discharged. So it kind of doesn't really fit into that second part. If they lack the capacity, then they probably are a danger to self or others, which then means we would be able to keep them.
Does that mean restraints, straitjackets, are those still used? I mean, I don't know.
So we don't use
Is that funny?
straitjackets anymore, but restraints, if an individual becomes violent, they can be mechanically restrained. There's a lot of regulatory standards around that. All of our training programs for our staff are geared to prevent that and to learn de-escalation techniques and ways to mitigate before it gets to that point. But if it gets to that point and we have to put hands on somebody, then yeah, restraints can occur. So yes, great questions. Yes?
So I find the magnetic treatment, the outpatient, absolutely fascinating. And when I took a tour, I feel like there were 3 things right now you guys can do. Maybe depression, OCD, and smoking. Does that sound right?
Yeah, so we do for depression and anxiety currently. There is a separate helmet that an individual uses that would be used for OCD. That's one that we are considering as well. There is some efficacy for smoking, although I'm not sure that our doctors are using it for that because there are so many other good options, you know, to do. But yeah, the expansion opportunities for that program are endless, and the technology continues to advance. So, yeah, no, you're right. It is exciting.
Giving a plug for that program, I know someone who went through it and it was very beneficial, very beneficial.
Well, thank you for the plug. I'll take that, yeah. No, that program though, the process is really non-invasive. So, you literally sit for about 30 minutes, with the helmet on, and what you receive is like pulses from the magnet. So at worst, you might walk out with a very mild headache, and that's rare, for that to occur. So yeah, it's a very safe treatment option, but it does have a lot of proof for efficacy and success, so thank you.
Yeah, there's absolutely no downtime with that. You can come in for the appointment and be back out the door in a half an hour or whatever and go back to resume your daily activities. So,
Is that a recurring treatment? I mean, does it last like 6 months or?
So it's the challenge with TMS is that it is a process that you have to do daily or 5 days a week for the first week or 2 to 3. After that though, you should see the results, and as long as it's sustained, there's no need to come back for any maintenance. But you have the ability to come back for maintenance if it's needed. So, but yeah, that's probably the only challenge is that you gotta find a half hour every day, 5 days a week for the first 2 or 3 weeks.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
Over the last maybe 10, 15 years, we've moved away from residential facilities for youth. And the fact that you're opening up a residential program, does that mean they've seen that there really is a need? And going back, is that movement changing?
That's a great question. I couldn't have asked for that better question, prep me for what I wanted to say. So basically, residential, the residential treatment programs are under reimbursed, which means the providers often don't get enough money to make it efficient for them to be able to run them with the type of staff they need. Our program is attached to this hospital so that if I have a child that acts up or has a major problem or a crisis, I can bring all the resources of the hospital to bear. And when that happens, and it does occur, we've only been open since February and it's happened twice, we call a response team in. The individual might need to be admitted to the hospital. We are able to just transfer them to inpatient where we have all the resources there. If it was a standard residential program out in the community, they would have to call the police. The police would pick them up and take them to Meredith's ER where they would be evaluated, and then they would be referred here for inpatient and then go back to into a residential program. This is a smooth transition, and that's why the state liked our model. So it's actually a pilot program, and if it's successful, it could be a model to be duplicated around the state. So that's our hope, but it's also why residential programs are often not successful, is because they're underfunded. So, and being underfunded, they can't hold staff or pay staff the right salaries. And when there are challenges and there are freestanding programs, they're away from where the resources are, and it's very labor intensive and costly to get that child where they need to be. So, great question. That's the pinnacle question. Right? Anything else? Well, thank you guys so much for allowing me to.